When my wife started going through it, there were so many emotional issues and so much disassociation with her. And it was to the point where we were starting to look at all kinds of psychological analysis and even like, do we need to check you into a mental hospital type thing? And luckily, we connected the dots in time to not go down that road because that's where we were going with it. And she was there too. She was like, hey, I don't know. I cannot control my emotions. I don't know what is happening to me. And it was really scary.
Hey, and welcome back to the Awakening Spaces podcast. Today, I got to sit down and chat with Brent Little of Pinehaven Healthy Homes out of McCall, Idaho. And Brent is one of those rare unicorns that has had his own experience with CIRS. And I say rare unicorn because typically we see the woman in the relationship getting sick and the partner is on the other side, not fully believing them or not understanding what they're going through. But in Brent's case, him and his wife both got pretty sick from a mold exposure that they had in an RV while they were building their house. Brent has been in the construction industry for over 20 years. He has been in the know in building science practices. He's building luxury high performance homes in Idaho when all of this happened and when he got sick. So when I was first introduced to Brent, I immediately knew I wanted to hear what his story was. I wanted to hear what happened with him, what was the straw that broke the camel's back and how he healed from all this. And now how his construction practice has changed with this new information and this new experience that he has had. And we had such an awesome conversation. Brent is just filled with wisdom. He's got so much depth, so much spirituality. This was the perfect conversation for the Awakening Spaces podcast. We touched on so many things, the inner journey, the physical journey, construction. We really hit it all in this episode, and I absolutely loved chatting with Brent. So without further ado, let's dive in. I really think you're going to love this episode. Welcome to the podcast, Brent. I'm so excited to have you here.
Excited to be here.
You and I connected on Instagram, and you are a builder who has been working in this industry for 20 years?
I've owned a business for 20 years. I've been in the trades for 30 plus years. Definitely showing my age there, but it's all I've done. I love it. And it's what I got into at an early age. So
you've been doing this work in the construction industry for so long. You've probably seen so many things. But one of the main reasons that I wanted to bring you on was because you reached out to me and you shared with me that you actually have had your own experience with environmental toxins and health. And you've been on this journey that's just totally shifted the way that you do things. And so I just want to dive into that because there's a lot of people who start building healthy homes because either they've never built before and they're like, well, I'm sick and I have to figure out how to build because no one else is going to do this right for me. Or they're like, oh, I see. This is kind of trendy. This is the new niche things and we all deserve healthy homes. So let's start changing our business model to be healthier because why not? But you're in a very unique position where you're a male, which I feel like is a lot less common than seeing a female who's dealing with environmental toxins. And you've been doing this for so long. So I'd love for you to just take us back to paint a little picture of what life was before you got sick. And then what was that moment that you noticed something was off?
Yeah, so coming from a high-driven mindset, anytime I had been exposed to other environmental problems like mold in the past, I've actually lived in multiple houses with large amounts of mold. I've dealt with many jobs that were remediation type jobs I probably shouldn't have been involved in, but you have clients that come to you and they have, especially in a retrofit type situation, in the early stages of my career, did a lot of remodels and additions, and the amount of mold that you get exposed to during those type of jobs is large. And I never felt any impact from that. I'm sure it did affect me at some capacity, but I think my toxic burden, my cup was not full enough for it to take me over the edge and be a health concern. Doesn't say that it's not unhealthy to be around, but it wasn't for me at the time. So because of that, fast forward to 2 years ago, we bought our property. We figured out, okay, how are we going to build our house? We're going to buy an RV. We'll live in the RV while we built the house. Sounded like a great solution, and so many people do it too. The problem with the RV is that if you think of an RV on the building science side of things, it's probably the worst assembly that you could ever construct or live in. It has paper thin walls, thermal conduction or transfer through the metal frame of the place. It's elevated off the ground with cheap, high tox materials that are off-gassing in the place. I don't know. I think of them as death boxes now after such a bad experience that I had with them. But anyways, there ended up being a really significant mold issue with that RV. It was a brand new RV, but it started leaking in probably every plumbing joint on the piping in that RV. And I started fixing as many of them as I could, but didn't really think that much of the rest of them. And it was leaking into the skirting underside of the RV and causing a condition where you have to keep that heated because we live in a cold, snowy environment. It'll get to -20 in the wintertime here. And so ends up being this air sealed, humid environment that's heated and just a petri dish for mold. Aside from that, there were also a lot of issues going on the inside of the RV where condensation was occurring from the inside of the RV being heated and thin walls that are metal and vapor just coming in and condensing on that surface from the inside, mostly from us living in there, cooking in there, using propane heat, all the things that, create humidity. I realized it was a problem. We started trying to do things to mitigate it, but there's just not a lot to do. It's a hard temporary house to live in and keep safe. In hindsight, I would never do it again. But because of my ignorance to environmental toxicity through mold or other forms, it probably allowed me to ignore it longer than I should have. It absolutely did. My wife first started having health problems. It manifested in her pretty early. She had autoimmune issues previously, so we kind of just kept chalking it up to that. And we were both really healthy. We worked out. We were very active. Felt like we did everything that we could to keep ourselves healthy. We just didn't connect the dots. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's so hard to see what's right in front of your face. And I was ignorant to it. And I was probably willfully ignorant to it as well because it was a means to an end. It was what we needed to live in to get our house built and finished. It was kind of necessary. And so once it started failing, I didn't feel like I had time to address it like I needed to. Ignored it, and it ended up being a major issue. We ended up getting really sick from the mold. I would imagine the toxins coming off the
materials.
Just off-gassing VOCs, probably EMF. I mean, there's a lot of AC to DC going on in those inverters, solar panel on top.
Oh, wow.
Sewer gas, endotoxins, they're right there. The vent is on right there next to windows. There's Studer vents under the sinks, but then there's also a vent. Then there's the clean out. So there's just so many problems, and I don't know what exactly it was that made us sick. I can point to a lot of things that were pretty obvious, but the bottom line is that it really did. So once we did connect the dots that, okay, this is coming from the RV, we got out of there as quickly as we could. I had a shop built. We were still working on the house. We spent a lot of time in the shop and then moved into the house as quick as possible. And the funny thing is once we got into the house, my symptoms got even worse. And I think it was due to job sites and the off-gassing of the new materials in our house. That's the only thing I can really attribute it to. You do hear about this with other people that leave a toxic environment. They get into what they feel like is a safe space and symptoms uptick. And I don't know if that's because your nervous system is like, okay, we're in a safe place. Now we can start allowing your body to detox and mobilize. And I don't know what it is, but I do know that moving into a new home, we didn't have an ERV running yet. It was just get into the house as quickly as possible. So we had a really tight home, really well-built home, but no ventilation at the time. So we were getting the full burden of all of that.
So the RV was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back for you. That was like you guys started getting sick. You got rid of the RV, but you were already well on your way to building the house. So the house that you built, did you incorporate any healthy home strategies into that one without really knowing? Or how did you design the house? Like what kind of considerations did you take into the house? Because you didn't know you were sick then or having issues. So did you do anything? Because you're really into building science too. So were you already into building science before the RV stuff?
I was already into building science. It was something that I've always been interested in out of necessity to build better homes, but also just because it's very interesting. But it's too bad because there's a lot of things with our house that I do regret now and that I wish that we wouldn't have used in the house. But in general, it's what I would consider healthy. And
Yeah.
really, a healthy home to me is a resilient, robust, something that can stand up to any kind of water events, good overhangs, good design, functional design. That's
Yeah.
kind of the fundamentals of a healthy home anyway, in my eye, is just really good building practice and paying attention to the control layers and the building science side of things. As far as materials, yeah, we missed on quite a few of those. The amount of plastics that are in a home and the standard of how often they're used. When you're just in conventional construction, it feels like it's the only option. And it was a real eye-opener once I started going down the road of actual healthy home building through materials as well, just how much I didn't know and how many options there are out there. You know, all the finishes and the substitutions for petroleum-based products and for high toxicity products. So yeah, we definitely missed on a lot of those, but we did install an HRV. We're in a drier climate, so we installed it in a really good system. It's dedicated. So we do have fresh air exchange that's balanced and is able to dilute some of that toxic load.
Yeah. So, wow, like how lucky that you got that you were aware of the building science and the building enclosure, at least, because that's like the first step, right, of foundational healthy home is making sure you have a good enclosure, a watertight enclosure, that it can withstand the elements. It's durable. I'm curious, though, what are some of the things that you, looking back on now, you're like, oh, shoot, I wish I wouldn't have used this material in my house? Is there anything specific?
Honestly, I've gotten kind of snobby as far as healthy materials go, natural materials. If I had to do it over again right now, I would probably build a mass wall system out of rammed earth with all lime plasters, clay plasters, earthen floors that are connected to the earth. One of the things we did at our house that someone wouldn't even think of otherwise is our house is elevated. We have really good views in the mountains. And because of that, we built up. Well, building up separates you from the ground. I want to be able to get that double benefit of grounding to the earth while I'm just doing my day-to-day in the house. You know, just little things like that, little design decisions, orientation of the house to capitalize on some of the passive functional things like passive solar and some of the more, passive house type strategies. Just because of time constraints and we got to get this done, we didn't spend as much time on design as I wish we would have. Something that I feel like is so important and I talk to people about all the time, but I missed myself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of materials, but nothing big, and they've hopefully off-gassed by now. But we didn't use spray foam. We used better insulation for toxicity, but the control layers are robust. We have rain screens on the home. We have really good overhangs. We have standing seam metal roof. You know, a lot of the durability items, they're hit just because that's what I was already focused on and knew about. But materials is a new one.
I mean, I love what you're saying, though, like the things that you would do. And I love that you're saying earthen floors because with earthen floors, I love that you're also lifted up off the ground because you could do an earthen floor and then like connect it to ground rods.
Oh.
And still get your vapor control under the slab. Because I always wonder, like, how do you do an earthen floor on the ground? Because now you have a potential vapor issue. And if you put plastic underneath the earthen floor, you're losing the ability for the conductivity and grounding benefits. So you'd still have to figure out a way to like
absolutely
wire it. Anyway,
I have thought so much about that subject myself. Like, how many layers of sub-base do you need to stop that capillary action from happening? So you can get a capillary break through your sub-base and your drainage, but vapor is still going to travel. And so what's your site like? How much stormwater drainage is there? All these other considerations, but the same thing, these control layers just messing us up, uncoupling the slab from the earth. So I have talked to some people about that. I think I even heard you mention at one point the ground rods connected into earthen floor being enough to transfer those negative ions, or what is it, negative ions and the energy from the earth?
Well, it's like the electrons. And, you'd have to like measure it too. Like, this is something I'm not an expert on at all, but it's something like if I were to build a house, it would be a design problem that I would want to solve because you get so many benefits from grounding outside and putting your feet to the earth. If we were able to do that right from our actual floor in our home, that would be huge. Huge,
Yeah.
huge, huge. I'm not a fan of grounding pads. I'm not a fan of grounding sheets and things that you have to plug into your electrical system because there's too many risks with that. Like you don't want to plug yourself into an electrical system. I want to plug myself into the ground.
Yep.
So
Keep it as natural.
Exactly. And I talked a little bit about this with Kelly, the non-toxic architect, in an episode. She's doing it somehow. But yeah, you'd have to use like an electrical ohm meter to like test if you're actually getting grounded or not. So
And
there's a little science involved in that, I think.
it's a high level healthy home upgrade.
Exactly.
Definitely. I know. And you would want that testing too, because you don't want to go to that work and effort and just wonder, I hope I'm getting benefits from this.
Right, exactly. So, okay, let's go back to just like some of your symptoms and some of the things, because it seems like it's always the woman who's getting sick. And you were saying with your wife, she started with her autoimmunity, and that's sort of my story too, like autoimmunity, gut issues, slow little symptoms I never connected to toxins or the environment or anything like that. And oftentimes the woman is like fighting their husband, trying to get them to believe that they're having issues. So what was that dynamic like with you and your wife? Like she started having issues where you started noticing. What kind of issues were you having?
That's such an important one too, because I had already gone through the autoimmune issues, seeing my wife go through that. So my eyes have been open to what chronic illness could do to you, but I don't think I could have ever understood or really gotten through this as well as I did without me getting sick myself, because there is just so much that happens and it's not always visible what's going on. It's hard to believe that many things could be going on from environmental toxicity until you've gone through it. It feels like you are just even listing off your symptoms to somebody. As you're telling someone, you're like, I sound like a hypochondriac right now. This can't all be happening from one thing. And so it was almost a necessary evil for me to go through it as well. And it's turned out to be a really big blessing just because we're able to help each other, work with each other on it. It's been difficult. I mean, your brain is on fire. Emotions are high at times. You're going through phases where you're just like, how are we surviving? I mean, we're leaving a boiling pot of water on the stove and not even realizing it. It's scary. But when my wife started going through it, there were so many emotional issues and so much disassociation with her. And it was to the point where we were starting to look at all kinds of psychological analysis and even like, do we need to check you into a mental hospital type thing? And luckily, we connected the dots in time to not go down that road, because that's where we were going with it. And she was there too. She was like, hey, I don't know. I cannot control my emotions. I don't know what is happening to me. And it was really scary. My first symptoms were also neuro symptoms where I was just forgetting things. I was forgetting conversations. I was not able to run jobs the way I had been able to in the past. Managing was getting very difficult. And I honestly thought I had some type of brain cancer or major problem going on. I don't go to the doctor for anything unless my arm is falling off. I'm that kind of a person. When I get cut on a job site, I go to my truck and I have stitches in the truck and I'll tie them up myself. I'm just that hard-headed dude that just I don't need a doctor. I'll handle it. It's going to take a lot for me to end up at a doctor. And I did end up going to the doctor. My primary care doctor got blown off immediately. When I did connect the dots and started talking to her about mold and what we could do to treat it, she didn't tell me that she didn't believe me, but just said, even if it is an issue, it's something that insurance won't cover and so we can't treat. And the best I can do for you is you can go see an allergist. This is not an allergy that's happening. So as far as symptoms, I don't think about them all the time. I try not to focus on them. And I forget half the symptoms I've had through the whole span of it. I can read off a few of them really quick.
Do it.
Yeah, right before the conversation, I was like, I'll write down a few symptoms. And it would be tinnitus, can't yawn, floaters outside. Looks like it's snowing when you walk outside in the sun. Air hunger, swallowing issues, blistering in my esophagus. For over a year, I had these white blisters in the back of my esophagus. Just really scary, but just one of those things. Swollen eustachian tube pressure, went to multiple ENTs. I did go to doctors for that. I got multiple CT scans of it, and sinus pressure, migraines, jaw, tooth pain, spinal instability, nerve sensitivity, tingling in the arms, mark on sinus issues, wired, tired, tank testosterone and other hormones hormones, static shock, night sweats, impending doom, internal vibrations, lightheaded standing, lightheaded even not standing, just that rush, heart palpitations, skin issues, pinpricks, itchiness, dropping items, just be holding onto a glass bottle and just drop it. Just didn't have control. And food sensitivity, gut problems, sleep problems, loss of creativity, enjoyment of music, spine instability, dysregulation, blurred vision, drunk feeling. The list goes on. So there's cluster symptoms that you can go by to identify if you have, say, CIRS. And it's a mile long, and it's just hard to believe that you could have that many things going on. And it could all just be from environmental toxins, especially when you haven't experienced it before. But
it's a long list.
It's a long list. I would say the hardest thing were the emotional issues and the cognitive issues. Absolutely. That was extremely hard to deal with, but also it brought so much through experiencing that. There's so many lessons to be learned. And I'm always trying to stay positive, always trying to find the good in things. That was a really difficult thing, and it took time for me to find in this. I was definitely resentful in the beginning. Even after finding out what my problems were, it was hard for me to deal with the timelines that I was being given. When you're being told it could take a year for you to recover, that's not going to work. And I don't have time for that. But going through that is a humbling experience, and it really creates the ability to have compassion for other people that are having chronic illness going through it. And it opens up so many things that I'm a better person because of it. And I'm still going through it at this time. I mean, I'm still dealing with symptoms, but have gained so much more spirituality that I didn't really have before. Learned so much more about my nervous system, how I operate. Anytime in the past, if I had any kind of an issue, health-wise, my answer was always exercise, exertion, just sweat it out, suck it up. And I could get through it that way. You can't do that with this. And that's what makes it tough socially too, because it's hard for other people to identify with that. And so it ends up being extremely isolating. And that's where the benefit of having a spouse go through it with you comes in, because you can confide in each other. So
yeah, I feel like being a man going through this is probably 10 times harder than a woman going through this because of that social aspect, because other women might not understand what another woman is going through, but they're more empathetic, or they have something that they've dealt with that they just find a way of relating in some way. Whereas like men who are not going through this, it's totally different. I don't want to make blanket statements about men, but it's just in general, like most men are like, well, toughen it up, suck it up. Like, you're fine. Like, get over it. You know what I mean? And like, even my own husband, like, I mean, he's come such a long way since we've been together, but that is still his mentality he works through, is like, just work out, go to the gym, sweat it out. Like, just like what you were saying, I was like, yep.
Oh, I was always scared of actually really getting sick, because I was terrible at being sick. I mean, awful. I would get a flu and just be a mess. And another trait of a guy. But like, what would I do if I got sick to the point to where I couldn't just sweat it out or, do whatever to get over it and just suck it up and just barrel through? There was always a big fear of mine. And I don't have that fear anymore, because I'm still having a hard time exercising and really going at any kind of higher level of exercise at all. So I can do like walking, and I can break a sweat, but nothing too high level yet. So it's difficult, and it teaches you a lot about yourself, and you learn other coping mechanisms. And that is a valuable lesson. It's a lesson that I'm really happy to have learned. And you don't know what you need until it's given to you. I really try to think of this chronic illness as something that was given to me and not something that happened to me. You hear that saying, and I really think it rings true with me. And really just finding gratitude in what you can learn and take from it. And the amount of people that I've connected with because of this, and the amazing women too. There are just so many people that are willing to help and relate with you. Amazing communities. I'm in Lauren, the Biotoxin Lady, her community. I'm one of the building enclosure moderator over there.
Awesome.
So help people figure out problems with their houses and troubleshoot issues. And it's incredible how giving and willing to help some of these people are in this space. And it really gives you hope, and it gives you motivation to give back and to keep going through it. So Lauren was a huge changing point for me in this. We started off just going down the functional medical doctor. What you find out is that not only does conventional medicine not understand mold illness, but a lot of functional and integrative medicine doesn't understand it either. It's just so complex, and there's so many different ways to go about it. And it's hard to expect too much out of a doctor anyway. But, we ended up going down the wrong route quite a long time, spent a ton of money with very little result, starting to get really discouraged, and came across Lauren, Dr. Dorninger. As soon as I saw them talking about CIRS and what that was, it was just this aha moment where it was just so clear and relatable that I went on this binge of watching everything that they had to offer and got in contact with Lauren and joined her private community. And it's just been such a good experience.
I just had him on, Dr. Dorninger. When you're released, it'll be like 2 episodes ago for anyone who's listening. But yeah, him and Lauren, both such amazing resources. What were some of the things that you were doing to start that you were not having success with? Do you remember?
Yeah, some of it was just, it's so hard to figure out how to address these issues, and finding a doctor that will actually listen to you and fight for you. And the first doctor we went to sell protocols. They sit you in a sales room. They come in, they say, do you want to buy the 3-month protocol, the 6-month protocol, the 1-year protocol? In hindsight, it's like, that sounds really sketchy. And why would you pay for something like that and walk into that? But you're so desperate. It took 3 months to get this appointment with these people. You're very naive to what it is that you're even dealing with. And you're really just hoping that maybe they can help, and whatever they say will help. If I can buy my way out of this, buy my way to health, I'll throw money at it. That was something that we learned the hard way the first probably a little less than a year of the journey. So one of the doctors, I was having a last meeting I had with him. It was an hour at $450 an hour for him to tell me what I would do with your symptoms and with what you're dealing with is go on to Dr. Jill Krista's website. She has really good information to deal with that. And that's the protocol that I would use. So it's probably easier for you to just go do that yourself. So it was just really lazy, and it was difficult, but that's part of why it was such a beam of light to find somebody that understood what we were dealing with and took pride in fighting for their patients, whether it's a coaching situation or a doctor. And honesty and integrity goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Lauren's community is very unique. I feel like I don't know of another one like hers. Yeah, I think it's such a needed place for people who are going through this. When I was dealing with my symptoms, this was almost 8 years ago now, and it's just been a long journey. So for me, it was like me and my best friend were experiencing symptoms. It turned out she had CIRS. I had probably a compounding toxic effect that was happening that was a lot of overlapping symptoms, but not CIRS. And I was able to more easily recover from some just detox protocols. Whereas when you have CIRS, it's a different story. It is years. And even now, there are still flare-ups, and there's good days and bad days. And even when you're healing, you kind of have to make sure that you're not getting yourself into an environment that's going to set you off. It's just kind of the nature of it.
Yep.
And so, at that time, 8 years ago, it felt like there was like no resources for this. Like there was no good communities for her or for, people going through this. And part of the reason I led me on the path of me doing what I'm doing now, but it's a long journey. And especially when you have CIRS, some of the reasons I think it takes so long is you don't know you have CIRS to begin with, and it's like, oh, it's just mold illness. It's just mold. It's like, well, they're different and they require different things.
So many layers.
Yeah. So you guys started realizing it was mold, 2 years ago, you said?
It was about 2 years ago. It's when I was connecting the dots that it was mold. It took almost a year to figure out how do we deal with this mold issue and what's the route. And the route that ended up being both my wife and I was CIRS. We had the HLA haplotypes and failed the VCS and all the cluster symptoms. So, or enough of the cluster symptoms. And really the bottom line is that after realizing that, okay, that's the route that should work for us, once I did try it, it really worked. And it's amazing what cholestyramine, the biosequestrant binder that ended up helping me, was what that did for me. I had extreme pain in my dental area, my jaw, my back. It was so bad I couldn't carry bags of groceries. Walking up the stairs would just get winded. And within about 3 months, I started seeing significant relief from that with cholestyramine. It sounds like a long time, but in the scale of toxicity and chronic illness, it was fast, it felt like to me. And It's amazing how much it did help. Since then, I've kept taking it, but it's an ever evolving deal where everybody's different and everybody's route is different. I feel like it's hard to kind of just say, this is it, this is the route I'm going to follow and not deviate from it. So I've definitely gone different paths and used different modalities and healing techniques for things that have popped up and not resolved as well as I thought they would. It's difficult, it's messy, and it's a lot of up and down. It's just a kind of gradual climb up. And when you're having the downs, it feels like it's never going to end. Then next thing you know it, you're having a good day. So it's, you kind of learn, and progressively, if it's getting better, it's a lot easier to deal with. Also, just seeing people that have gone through it is so much easier to do anything if you have a roadmap to follow. And seeing somebody that's gone through it as well that you can identify with and you feel like you had similar situation as them. And that's one of the greatest things with the ease of information and protocols, different ways of going about these things that you can get through social media and other devices that really are worldwide. You can really find ways to tailor in something that works for you. There's just so many things that not only help me through this, but will help me from here on out. This is not going to be the last time I get sick. So learning this lesson now is really good. Also, it really narrows down like who is important in your life and what is important. The mentality has completely shifted of this race to the end. I have to work as hard as I can to get to this arbitrary finish line so that I can spend more time with my family that I'm neglecting while I'm racing to that finish line. And just little lessons like that where it's like, okay, just boom, you're going to slow down. And life has a really good way of teaching you lessons, whether you're ready for them or not. So I think it's just always be willing and ready to take that information because it's coming regardless. So
it is. Yeah. And this is why I wanted to have you on, because I was like, this is the Awakening Spaces podcast. We talk about construction, but like how we take everything and like turn it into like a lesson or an opportunity for growth. And like, how are we waking up to something new about ourselves, about our environment, about the people we love? Like, how are we growing and evolving as like souls on this planet? And it's so true. Like all these things are so hard, but without them, you wouldn't be who you are today.
Yep. It's been great too, because I'm able to relate to a lot of, say, guys on job sites that it's hard to present these things in a digestible way that won't just push people away. And, they knew me before, they've seen me before, they saw what happened, and they're like, holy cow, this actually is real. And it's really given me a good opportunity to educate and to plant little seeds with guys that I work with, other people, whether it's clients or whether it's people that I work with, other tradesmen or women or whatever. So it's been a great opportunity for that. And the guys on my crew have heard way too much of it. They are forced to hear it because they are being paid to be on the job. So they get to hear all the stuff about me. They've heard almost every episode of Lauren Reday's podcast, The House Holistics.
Yeah.
That was one of the first people I heard about natural building. And I went on this like spree of listening to all of her podcasts, and the guys on my crew were probably like, dude, what are we doing? But there's a lot of just great stuff, but then there's a lot of stuff that's maybe people aren't ready to hear, whether it's good or not, or valuable or not. If you come at people with too much, it can scare them off. So
for sure. It's like you just got to plant the little seeds in people's minds and then they can connect the dots for themselves.
Yep.
But I think it's like so cool that you're doing that. And like you're in this industry, like you are going to make such a huge shift and improvement because not only have your tradesmen and people you work with seen what you've actually gone through and witnessed you go from being in poor health to now better health and great health. You know what I mean? It's just the ripple effect. Like you're just going to make every person out there a little more aware about everything. Because I think the biggest thing too is like people just don't know what they don't know. So they don't ask questions. They just do what they've been doing for however many years. And so, you're going to make a huge shift. Okay. So you moved into your house and you're still working. You still own your own construction business. So like, how has your business changed from like when you built your house to today? Is there anything specifically that you changed that you do standard or that you could share with
Yeah,
them?
we've always built what I would consider high-end homes, big custom homes that I've always prided myself on trying to be the best builder in the area. Knowing the most about building science enclosures, I want to drive by a house that I built and see no icicles in the wintertime because there is zero heat transfer coming through that roof assembly. It's an embarrassment. If somebody had heat cable on a roof that I built, that's going to be a major shot to me as a builder. So I've always taken, not to say I can't make mistakes, because I have and everybody does, but learning from those and always, trying to produce a better product. So I've always, focused on robust, good building. But since this happened, for one, business scaled down significantly. I mean, it almost came to a screeching halt. I was involved in one specific job. There was a 5-year project, slopeside home, that we were already almost a year into it. We had 5 different engineers involved in it: soil testing, core testing, so civil engineer, geotech, retaining wall designer and engineer, 18-foot retaining walls. Anyway, because it was on a steep mountainside, there's core samples revealed as sandy layer over clay 16 feet down. And so the amount of groundwork and engineering to be able to create a buildable site was enormous. And because it's a slopeside lot, it justifies that work and that cost to go into it. But anyway, that's something that got put on hold. Luckily, the homeowners have waited for me. I passed them off to another builder friend of mine, but they have not proceeded with it. So I think that's probably something that I will hopefully get back into, is that project there. But other jobs, it was really just about, okay, finish off what we're doing until I can figure out how to manage these jobs, how to efficiently limit mistakes. There's so much liability as a builder. And for me, if I'm not at the top of my game mentally, I'm not capable of doing what it takes to do a high-end custom home. And so the business slowed down, but it's also been a great time for transition to happen. And I love it. I mean, I missed out on so much financial gain by having that happen to me, but the excitement that I have for the new business model is something that I've never had before.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so stoked about building with natural materials, healthier materials. It's an excitement that I have not had before. And then the people in the space are amazing. They're very passionate and they're very willing to collaborate and to work with each other. And it's just a win all around. And you're building with something that's going to make the client, give them a healthier home to live in, as well as keep you safe, your crew safe, other subcontractors safe, at least safe-ish, There's a whole scale to healthy home building, but the idea is to limit it as much as possible. And now, knowing what I know about materials and exposure to those materials during construction, it's hard to sign up for a conventional build with aerosolizing all those toxic materials. It's rough. There's a lot of hazard that being in construction alone that you're exposed to. When you add in toxic materials, it's even worse. One of my good friends, he's a flat work guy, concrete finisher, and he's 25 years old, and he just found out that he has a lump on his lungs. I asked him, have you heard of silicosis? Hasn't even heard of it. And there's a lot of health concerns just being in the trades as it is.
Yeah. So for those listening, Brent and I are having some technical difficulties over here. Hopefully we will still have video. We're going to keep going here. But Brent, you were saying that your colleague, he's only 25 years old and he has a lump on his lung and he hadn't heard about silicosis. Is he getting that looked at? Do they know what it is, or?
He's getting it looked at. He's definitely downplaying it. The mentality is just kind of that way a lot of the times, especially with concrete guys. So he doesn't want to think of it as a major issue, but it's been a great opportunity for me just to educate him on it, what silicosis is, kind of pass along some information about it. And then really, hey man, start looking at some of these other things, like wear a respirator more, try wet cutting instead of dry cutting as much. Don't go in there dry grinding things, showing him different tools, methods, techniques of doing things. And even telling him on jobs of mine where I can have control, first of all, for other people, but for you also, only wet cutting can be done. So
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, there's so many layers and levels of safety on our buildings. And that's actually like what my husband does. He's a safety manager at DPR Construction. He's been with the company for a really long time now, but he sees all types of things like that. We're very young kids. Like there's just a project where he had a 25-year-old young guy electrician die because he was electrocuted, not being safe on a project. And, a lot of these companies in commercial construction, they bring on safety managers for liability reasons, right? But we don't have that same level of care in residential. So it really does take people like you, the owner of the company, to care about this stuff to protect the people who are coming in every single day. So I think it's so important because it is a dangerous job. Like people not wearing the right protections and, you can lose a finger, you can lose an eye. Like those are just life safety types of things, not even just the toxins that we're getting exposed to. So I love that you're influencing the people on your crews and stuff to take better care of themselves.
Yeah, and I think they appreciate that too. I mean, I don't know how much they've bought into all of it, but they definitely appreciate it, and just voicing that, hey, you guys are young. Most of the guys are young that I work with, and it's important to look at these things and to use these type of techniques, these type of materials versus this, and you guys will all benefit from it, everybody. So it's an important stuff.
It is. Well, Brent, I've loved chatting with you today. I want to end everything on sort of the same question. So you've already shared so much with us just on like what you're doing and how you're growing from all of this, but just wondering, like, is there anything that you're currently moving through or going through, or a lesson that you've currently learned that you want to share and leave the listeners with today?
So I would say a lesson currently, it would be being present. It's nothing spectacular, but just really focusing on being present and being grateful for what you have, doing the best with what you have. So important to enjoy, because you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And so racing to the end is not going to get you anywhere good if you're ignoring the present.
That is honestly a piece of wisdom that I think is so easy to forget. I think we all move through life so quick. We have goals and things and tasks and kids and soccer games and things, everything. We're trying to do so much and fit so much in. And it isn't until someone dies or our health is deteriorating or something really big happens that we actually slow down, and we live in this, it can kind of push you in this time warp that makes you realize, like, holy crap, what's more important than this? And so I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, just like thinking back when my dad died and like the grief, 3 years went by and it felt like just this total time warp of like, where are my priorities? What am I doing? Like nothing else matters anymore. And I think the same happens when you have a huge health scare or something big like that in your life. So Brent, I think that was very good reminder and very inspirational.
Well, thanks, Ashley.
Yeah.
And it was really good talking to you, as always.
Yeah.
You have such good information. And I'd love to hear more from you, but it's unfortunate this had to be about me.
Well, we can always catch up anytime. But before we go, I would love for you to share, like, how can people find you? Just share a little bit about like some of the projects you take on, where you're at. I feel like we didn't really touch on that in the beginning either.
Yeah, I'm in central Idaho in McCall. It's a resort town. And you can find me at Pinehaven Healthy Homes, website, Instagram. I'm not a social media juggernaut by any means. I plan to post more in the future. I always say that, but it's just so hard to do when you're doing so many other things. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I have a website for my new business. We restructured and remodeled, and it'll grow from there. Hopefully have more outlets in the future, but that's what we have for now.
Yes. And next time I have you on the podcast, we'll go more into like what you're doing and some of the healthy home stuff. But today I really wanted to just talk about you and where you're at and your experience, to share that with people and bring awareness to it. But awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brent. I really appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ashley.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Awakening Spaces podcast. If you're ready to take what you've learned and start applying it to your own home, then there's a few ways that we can support you. On our website, you can find a collection of free and paid guides and courses that will walk you through everything from designing a healthy home to choosing safe materials and reducing mold, chemical, and EMF exposure. And if you're looking for more personalized guidance, then we also offer one-on-one consulting and design support, where we act as your owner's representative to help you plan, manage, and execute your new build or renovation project with confidence. You can explore all of these offerings on our website at awakeningspaces.com. And if this podcast has helped you in any way, we would be so incredibly grateful if you would like, subscribe, and share this podcast so that it can reach more people. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and being here and stepping into what it means to be an awakened homeowner.